The long-standing amicable economic relationship between Canada and the United States has recently been tested by unexpected storms. In this new period, which began with U.S. President Donald Trump's hefty tariffs on Canada, Ottawa has taken an unexpectedly strong and forceful response. Canada's change from its customary courteous and moderate stance, as well as its all-out we'll play our cards close to our chest strategy, astounded both Washington and foreign onlookers. The recent escalation of tariff tensions between Canada and the United States has expanded beyond autos, steel, and agricultural imports. There is currently speculation that Canada might play the trump card of oil, natural gas, and subsurface mineral riches, which are the lifeblood of U.S. industry. In reaction to the Trump administration's tariff and trade restrictions against Canada, the Canadian government is sending a message that we have such a strong trump card that we can truly put the U.S. in a tough situation. Canada's courageous approach has put it on the agenda. So what are these moves? Is the United States actually losing control? Who will win this equation? Canada has always had trade problems with the United States. However, until lately, conversations were typically quiet, with the parties reaching an agreement and moving on. This time, the circumstances are drastically different. Canada offers us an unfair trading edge. We've got a trade deficit. We must protect our own producers, Trump added, threatening tariffs. He threatened to impose high duties on Canadian imports of aluminum, steel, auto parts, dairy goods, and a variety of other products. The initial consequences were terrible. Canada imposed retaliatory duties on U.S. goods at the same rate. They targeted a broad spectrum of American items rather than a single commodity. So much so that ordinary Americans began to wonder, has Canada become our enemy? In essence, Canada is saying we are not friends, but we are responding to your tariffs in the same language. Canada is a global leader in energy and mining. The country's vast oil reserves are mostly derived from the oil sands of Alberta. Canada now has one of the world's greatest oil reserves, after only Saudi Arabia and Venezuela. The United States is particularly interested in this oil since its geographical closeness allows for low-cost imports via pipelines and tankers. In truth, for decades, America's energy security has been dependent on a steady supply of oil and gas from Canada. On the natural gas front, the situation is comparable. Canada is the second-largest natural gas provider to the U.S. As a result, Ottawa could, if it chose, cut off the oil and gas faucets to American refineries and warn Washington that if tariffs are imposed, your energy supply will be disrupted. This potential concerns the Trump administration, because despite the fact that domestic energy output in the United States has expanded thanks to sources such as shale oil and shale gas, there is still a high need for imports from Canada. Refineries, particularly in the Midwest, are suited to handle Canada's heavy crude. This implies that Canadian oil works far better with current refinery infrastructure than oil from Russia or the Middle East. If Canada intensifies its warning that Trump would impose tariffs on us while we consider halting oil and gas supplies, Midwestern refineries may confront a serious crude problem. The eventual consequence would be higher gasoline prices for American consumers, greater industrial expenses, and a spike in inflation. Of course, Canada understands that by using this advantage, it will face consequences. After all, the Canadian economy benefits greatly from oil and gas exports. However, Ottawa is conveying the message that, while we may suffer a short-term loss, our hands are not constrained in this tariff fight. Canada also asserts that it can redirect oil and gas to Asian or European markets. This is difficult since most current pipelines and tanker routes were developed with the United States in mind. Nonetheless, the increasing global demand for energy provides Canada considerable bargaining strength. Washington is also aware of it. As a result, in trade discussions, the subject of whether America would suffer a big energy shock if Canada turns off the oil tap is publicly debated in the White House hallways. Is it only oil and gas? Canada also has vast mineral reserves. Rare earths, nickel, uranium, potash, zinc, copper, and even lithium are all found in Canadian soil. These minerals form the basis of contemporary technology: electric cars, aerospace, and defense sectors. Electric vehicle makers, such as Tesla and the American semiconductor industry, rely heavily on rare earths and other essential minerals. The United States sought to safeguard its mineral resources with Canada because it anticipated problems with rare earths in its trade conflict with China. If Canada announced that it was limiting shipments of certain minerals or hiking tariffs on them, numerous American sectors would instantly suffer. Canada's strategic retaliation measures, a two-stage revenge strategy. Canada has declared that it will apply a 25% tax on items worth $155 billion in yearly imports from the United States. It will be implemented in two parts, with the option of Canada proposing further tariff and non-tariff measures after the second phase or simultaneously. Phase 1. 25% tax on $30 billion in U.S. goods. Finance Canada has revealed the first part of its reaction to any tariffs imposed by the United States, consistent with Canada's unambiguous assurances that it will retaliate. A 25% surtax on around $30 billion in U.S. products. Effective February 4, 2025. The surtax largely applies to consumer products, including fresh and prepared meals, apparel, and consumer durables. Surtaxes are paid by the importer. They are levied on the tax value of imported products, which is typically the purchase price paid or payable, subject to certain adjustments or reductions. The second phase imposes a 25% surtax on $125 billion in U.S. imports. The second part of Canada's reaction is a surtax on items worth $125 billion in yearly U.S. imports. The full list of U.S. goods to be targeted in the second phase has yet to be determined, but it is expected to include vehicles, passenger and recreational, trucks and buses, including electric vehicles, steel and aluminum products, some fruits and vegetables, aerospace products, recreational boats, beef and pork, and dairy products. This surgical reprisal plan is shockingly severe, given Canada's previous nice demeanor. Some refer to it as Ottawa's daring revolution. But how does this strong position play out in the United States? It appears that everyone in Washington is taking the Canadian retaliations seriously. On the one hand, the U.S. car sector is extremely anxious. For years, the trade in automobiles and components with Canada has worked smoothly, with the economic ecology fully integrated. If each stage is now taxed, production costs might surge, prices could climb, and thousands of dollars could be taken out of American customers' pockets. Electric cars are not an exception. Some battery components are sourced from Canada, while certain sensors are sourced from Mexico. Assembly takes place in the United States. If tensions with Canada persist in this chain, electric vehicle pricing will be unpredictable. Furthermore, Canadian authorities have stated that if the United States raises tariffs on us, we would seek alternative partners in the electric car technology and battery industry, meaning that they may go to China, Europe, or even South Korea. How has Canada's stern attitude been received? Canada's extraordinarily strong attitude is distinguished for its widespread popular backing. Traditionally, Canadians appreciate the spirit of good neighbor and friend. However, the Trump administration's rhetoric and contempt for Canadian interests appear to have exhausted Canadians' patience. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and officials like Chrystia Freeland have previously stated that they support fair trade. However, if we are assaulted, we will retaliate. Local authorities caution that these communities are inextricably linked to the American automobile sector, citing locations such as Windsor and Ontario as the backbone of automotive and steel manufacturing. If Trump continues to raise tariffs and Canada is determined to react, the chain will eventually break. So, in which industries is the Canadian move affecting the United States? The list of retaliations is lengthy. For example, steel and aluminum imports from the United States face a 25% duty, as do dairy goods, peanut butter, fruit juices, and even chocolates. In this fashion, the Canadian authorities chose items from states in the United States that have significant export lobbying. Milk producers in Mississippi, cheese makers in Wisconsin, bourbon whiskey makers in Kentucky, and chocolate firms in Pennsylvania are all in a panic. What's happening? All of these sectors may put pressure on Washington by claiming that tariffs are causing them to lose markets. We're alienating a major buyer like Canada. Stop this. Canada has created a clear image. If you are unhappy with the tariffs, please notify the Trump administration. In other words, Ottawa is putting the ball in the court of American domestic politics. Canada has declared measures for future reprisals against both consumer and technology items. If Washington continues to restrict the market for our electric vehicles, Ottawa plans to hike duties on computers, communications equipment, battery cells, and high-tech components from the United States. This has sparked concern in a variety of businesses, including Silicon Valley and Detroit. This is Canada's way of stating, "I don't have a blank card either." Those who have long believed that Canada is a junior partner of the United States and must submit are now astonished to see that Canada has become a formidable force. It is redefining the rules. Everyone says that if this continues, the United States will lose control. Furthermore, there is a risk of inflation in the U.S. The Fed is issuing warnings. Many things will become more expensive if an extra tax is levied on products imported from Canada. Electric cars are already pricey. If the supply of batteries or components from Canada is disrupted, costs may climb even further. Finally, American consumers who wish to cut carbon emissions will have to pay a premium for electric automobiles. It's unclear who gains from this policy. Seeing this scenario, Canada is making critical decisions, as the country's economy is heavily reliant on the United States. Because of this dependency, Canada may be the party most affected by Trump's protectionist policies. If we do not react, we risk being crushed in every industry. So it's best to adopt an assertive and firm attitude, maybe pressing for a deal, Ottawa advises. This is a redefinition of the rules method, because in the past, Canada handled the matter with one or two little retaliations under the guise of friendliness. It is now targeting U.S. products with full protectionist measures, upsetting Washington's domestic politics. This strategic move boosts both Canada's economic and diplomatic standing. Canada's new tariffs and retaliations began with steel and aluminum, then expanded to include car products. However, the major surprise is in agricultural and consumer products. While some may attempt to downplay the impact of these actions, voters in the United States might respond strongly. If an Iowa farmer loses his agricultural exports or a Kentucky whiskey maker loses his market, politics suffers greatly. Trump could have to say, "Okay, let's not go after Canada." The consequence might be that the United States withdraws, claiming that it has lost control. Alternatively, he will insist on tariffs, prompting a strong response from Canada. In other words, the trade war is a vicious loop. Of course, we are aware that major actors such as the European Union and China are in conflict with the United States. Canada might get closer to them and strengthen various trade relationships. For example, there is the CETA, Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement with the EU, as well as new agreements with Asia-Pacific nations like the CPTPP. In this approach, Canada demonstrates its flexibility by stating, "If the United States does not want me, I will strengthen cooperation with other markets." This refutes Washington's "you are helpless" theory. In reality, Canada's remark that I am not obligated to the United States in the electric car components trade and would also collaborate with European manufacturers concerns American automakers. Finally, the United States may have to realize that it is not the world's only consumer market. Canada also has alternatives. On the other side, Canadians are developing a stronger feeling of national pride. polls suggest that a large proportion of Canadians are pleased with Ottawa's response to American tariffs. The Canadian press is also writing, "We're finally showing our teeth tone." This strengthens the government's position, thus the opposing side is not frightened of raising hostilities. When the United States begins to lose power, the likelihood of saying, "Okay, let's sit down at the table," may increase. Of course, Trump, known for his severe temperament, may respond, "I will never back down." The crisis would then escalate. There are comparable concerns with Mexico, and the USMCA between the United States, Mexico, and Canada may be imperiled. This might be a severe shock to industries such as automotive, agriculture, and energy. Why are electric vehicles important? When it comes to electric cars, the picture becomes more fascinating. Every electric car item or battery material that enters the U.S. market may be sourced from Canada. The minerals, batteries, refined lithium, and nickel are mostly found in Canada. When the tariffs go into effect, U.S. manufacturers will claim it's too expensive to buy battery parts, so will pass on the cost and boost car prices. And the buyer will ask, "We expected a cheaper Tesla, why is it so expensive?" The answer is simple: trade war. This might potentially jeopardize America's climate targets. Increasing the cost of public transportation and electric automobiles implies delaying the transfer of people. In reaction, Canada's biggest move may have been to focus on smart products. In other words, they did not apply duties on every commodity imported from the United States. They looked at which sectors had the most lobbying strength and which products were crucial in each area. For example, whiskey, fruit juice, chocolate, agricultural items, and industrial gear were all identified as critical. Thus, they had a significant influence on U.S. internal politics. Manufacturers will tell Trump, "Stop fighting with Canada or we'll be in trouble." They are contending that Canada has reinterpreted the rules and the United States is losing control. The assumption is that Trump used to be able to proclaim, "I bang my fist on the table and things change." But this time, Canada says, "We're banging our fists too." This new image is likely to alter the rules of the trade game, both at the sectoral and diplomatic levels. If the United States backs down, Trump's reputation may be tainted as a failure. If the United States does not back down, price shocks and economic losses are on the horizon. If both sides say, "I won't compromise," a lengthy trade war will benefit no one. Mexico is also becoming concerned, saying, "Don't fight with me, there's immigration, etc." The European Union and China are both on the line. In this multifaceted conflict, the United States cannot act as the only sovereign. However, Canada's toughening suggests that the U.S. will not have its way this time. Of course, the issue remains. Will Canada truly benefit from this conflict, or will it minimize the damage? Experts argue that winning generally entails losing less. But, at the very least, Canada has increased its bargaining power by pulling the United States into its losses rather than accepting them unilaterally. This might be a terrific precedent for international trade diplomacy. Other nations may respond by imposing duties if Canada does the same, and global trade might become the new normal. It is debatable who will come out on top in this situation. What are your thoughts about this? Did Canada's stern reaction against the United States actually change the rules? Or is it just a temporary exit? Will the United States continue to impose high-cost automobiles and commodities on its own citizens by stating that tariffs must be maintained, or will it reverse course? What impact will this trade war have on the future of electric vehicles and the destiny of automakers? Share your opinions in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel, enable alerts, and click the like button. Developments are continuing apace. Perhaps tomorrow, Canada will respond with a new product line. Maybe Trump will send a tweet to exacerbate the situation even further. What we do know is that Canada has delivered a strong message that it will not back down, and the United States is not as comfortable as it once was. This offers up a whole new set of possibilities in the new era of commerce. Thank you for tuning in.